Chronulus. I wanted to give you a little demo of chatting with Chronulus in Claude. So this example is from Claude Desktop. It allows us to connect to an MCP server, which is basically a way of interacting with Python and with Chronulus in a desktop application. So let's walk through a little scenario I've tested out. This is with basically pretending to be a coffee shop owner. The idea here is we want to forecast the demand for a new type of pastry, so we're going to add a chocolate croissant to our menu. We already have a couple other croissants on the menu that we can kind of utilize to help give us some baseline for demand. And so we're just going to step through this and see how Claude and Chronulus interact to give us a result. So the first thing Claude's going to do is it's going to realize we just asked for a forecast. It knows that we have Chronulus agents installed, and so it's going to ask us to give it permission to use the tool. And this particular tool is basically setting up a Chronulus session. So that basically describes the overall use case, breaking down what the user described into a situation and task. So a situation being something very broad or more broad with more background information, and the task being the individual thing that we're trying to perform. So we can go back in here. It kind of closed it in our face here, but we can look to see what those actually are and how Claude used that. So for the situation, it said, well, we're a coffee shop, currently sells butter and almond croissants and wants to add chocolate croissants to their assortment. They need a daily demand forecast to optimize inventory and production. So yeah, very technical way of putting it, but yeah, that's basically what we want to do. The forecast, so for the task, it says forecast the daily demand for chocolate croissants as a proportion of total croissant sales. It's not really what we want. We want to forecast demand, total demand for the chocolate croissant, not as a proportion. You update the task to forecast the total demand for the chocolate rescale. Alright, so let's see if it has updated. Let's add chocolate croissants to their set run. Then need a forecast. Yeah. The task here, forecast the daily demand in units to help with inventory planning. Okay. Alright, so now it's going to ask us for a few questions here for some clarifying information. What's your current daily sales volume for butter and almond croissants? Do you see different sales patterns? Okay. So some of that information here, just plug that in. Basically going to tell it that we sell on average 10 butter croissants and 15 almond croissants. And I'm also going to give it some information here that we're closed on Saturday and that we're located where we're located. It's going to understand what our neighborhood's like. And I also add here, we are located on the first floor of a commercial building. That should help it understand some variation within the week. So let's see what Claude does with this. Alright, so now it's going to start using our actual agent. So I'm going to allow that tool as well. So this particular tool creates an agent and then gets a forecast using that agent. So here Claude is basically setting up all the inputs for the agent, describes our data model, describes the input data, so it's basically taking the elements of data from our conversation and plugging those directly into the agent as text. Since this particular agent only predicts the sort of weighted demands, demand factors, we're going to rescale that to get the actual quantities back. So that's this next task that it's doing. So we get this back. We think that peak demand is going to be around 9 to 10 units on weekly patterns. Actually, so this is just Claude talking. What did we actually get back? So what we got back from Chronulus, we got back a prediction ID, and we got back prediction data. So the date and y hat is the actual 0 to 1 forecast factor that we got back for each day. And then we also got back prediction explanation at the bottom. So basically Chronulus says, I estimate chocolate croissants will capture 40 to 50% of the current specialty croissant volume. And obviously the shop's closure on Saturdays is going to factor into the zero demand. So that makes sense. And then what we did is we came down and rescaled it. So basically, so what Claude did is it plugged in 15 units as the total volume. Not quite sure why it used 15 units. I think the total number of units that average units that we sell are 25, right? So, yeah, and it seems like our scale is a little bit off. So let's maybe not use 15 because 15 was just for the almond croissant, right? Yeah, so it only used the 15 from the almond croissant. Could you update the total number to 25 and 15? Since that is the average number basis. Okay, so now it's going to take that into consideration and rescale the predictions based off of that. Claude's doing a lot of updating here. Okay, so these are our rescaled units, it looks like, coming through. And so we get back here, let me check, yep, so March 1st is a Saturday, that's correct. Sometimes Claude, even though Chronulus gives back the correct dates, sometimes Claude will plot those incorrectly. It thinks that it needs to convert the dates into timestamps and then the timestamps from UTC, so basically time in England to time in whatever locality you're in, and that's not really necessary with Chronulus, so you need to find a workaround for that. But it looks like in this case it did plot all of the dates correctly, so that is great to see. So this is a pretty interesting forecast. So it's basically assuming that on Sunday, because it knows that we're a commercial, the coffee shop is in a commercial setting, it's going to basically downweight Sundays because there's going to be less activity on Sundays through a commercial building, even though it is open to the public. And then it's going to see a lot more traffic throughout the rest of the week, right? So that makes a lot of sense. All right, and that's just a quick walkthrough of how you can use Chronulus and Claude. I look forward to getting this out to everyone in open source. Thanks.